From all of us at the GPPA Youth Advocacy Movement, thank you. To our incredible sponsors and partners, your unwavering support has been the heartbeat of the Sofa Talk series. Because of you, we've built a space where voices are heard, stories are shared, and young minds are empowered.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I am Sherry Joseph, Project Coordinator and Advisor to the Youth Advocacy Movement of the Grenada Planned Parenthood Association. We're proud to present Sofa Talks, a bold and engaging 10-part television series that dives into the real-life issues surrounding Comprehensive Sexuality Education, or CSE, for adolescents. This series is part of the Build Back Equal project funded by Global Affairs Canada and implemented by UN Women and UNFPA, the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. The project is designed to empower young people with the knowledge and tools they need to make informed decisions about their sexual and reproductive health. Each 60-minute episode will feature 2 young advocates sharing their perspectives, 1 adult content expert providing professional insight, and a moderator guiding the conversation. The series is facilitated by YAM and will be aired on GIS channel over the coming weeks. Our moderators for the series are 2 dynamic young women who are passionate about youth empowerment. Ms. Berniah Forrester, President of the YAM and a teacher at St. Rose Modern Secondary School, will lead the presentation in episode 1. Ms. Denisa John, a second-year student at TAM-CC and a dedicated YAM member, will moderate and also present in episode 4. Throughout the series, we'll explore topics such as consent, healthy relationships, gender equality, body autonomy, and more, all through open, respectful, and youth-led dialogue. We invite all adolescents to tune in, share the experience, and take part in these important conversations. Let's learn together and build a future where every young person is informed, confident, and empowered. And now, let's begin today's episode with your moderator, Ms. Denisa John.
Hello, Grenada, and welcome to Sofa Talk. This is the space where we sit down, get real, and unpack the conversations that matters most to our youth. If you ever had a question you were afraid to ask or felt like your voice wasn't being heard, this is your platform. This is your moment, and we're here to make sure it counts. I am your moderator, Denisa John, and for episode 1, we're diving into a powerful and timely discussion: adolescent sexual and reproductive health and rights, and comprehensive sexuality education, right here in our Grenadian context. These aren't just health topics. They're about knowledge, empowerment, protection, and the right to make informed choices about our bodies, our futures, and our well-being. Because when young people are informed, they are unstoppable. And when we talk openly, we break the silence that holds us back. Joining me are 3 phenomenal voices in youth advocacy and adolescent health. Let's welcome Ms. Berniah Forrester, President of the Youth Advocacy Movement, Mr. Jonté Pierre, Vice President of YAM, and Dr. Tonia Frame, President of the Board of Directors at the Grenada Planned Parenthood Association, and a leading specialist in adolescent health. Let's give them a warm round of applause as we kick off the conversation, because this is Sofa Talk, and it's time to talk about what really matters. But first, let us learn about YAM.
I am Jonté Pierre, your YAM Vice President. With me, Ms. Berniah Forrester, your YAM President, and Dr. Tonia Frame, President of the Board of Directors of GPA and SRH Specialist. So, who are we really? We are YAM, and YAM are you. YAM is youth. So, we are a family of young people empowered to make a difference in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Macnic. To Be a YAM is to dare to be different. YAM members are not only individuals who are enforceful and embark in making change, but there are people with the confidence, the compassion, the empathy, and the willingness to educate not only our peers, but a wider audience. And as the slide says, knowledge is power. When you have the right information, you make safer and healthier decisions. So as the name would suggest, we are the Youth Advocacy Movement. Youth because we're made by youth, for youth. Advocacy because we're advocates for issues that impact us. Movements because we're constantly on the go on making change. And I'm just jumping back to the issues that impact us. Who say young people who have issues or adversities? Raise hands. No one, right? Is that a hand I see? Are you living life stress-free? Right, there are issues that impact us significantly today, especially in this world where information is so drastically at our fingertips. Wouldn't you agree, guys? So, as I said before, YAM are youth who dare to be different, dare to be more than the ordinary. And this ranges from sharing information, breaking stigma, and creating safe and supportive spaces for your peers. It's not everywhere you can find a judgment-free zone. As you can conclude from the activity before, you can't tell anybody your business. Am I right? Exactly. And not everyone is going to be receptive of what you have to say. And not everyone is going to hear what you said, but instead hear what they want. They won't listen. Am I right? Okay. So, YAM isn't only about a classroom setting or a teacher and student relationship. We engage in peer-to-peer interaction, and I think we're all aware that our peers don't only interact in a classroom. And we all go to Jump Up, we all go to FETS, we know where we are. So YAM has done plenty of activities over the year, and this ranges from school visits, YAM booths, health clinics, competitions, youth engagement and development, and of course our annual donation drive. I think over the years we've done some pretty exciting stuff, from traveling abroad to even interacting with the wider public in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Macnic. Berniah, what was your favorite memory from 2024? I think that was a very exciting year.
It was Jonté, and it's a hard question to answer because we have had so many impactful and exciting moments. But I must say that my favorite moment, it might not be your favorite, but it had to have been our Carriacou drive. Well, not a drive, but we went to Carriacou to help with the relief efforts. And there we were stationed in a beehive. So we were packaging flour among the bees.
I don't think
Coexisting with the bees.
I think my favorite memory from the 2024 YAM experience was our Christmas donation drive. You remember that?
Nice.
Particularly when I went around with our past president to drop off our self-made hampers to different homes. It was something so unique about just sharing that joy and that spirit of giving during the Christmas season to those in need. I think that was a great initiative that we did, and it was something so special about that moment. It just truly was my favorite. It is my favorite.
Yeah.
So as you can see, guys, YAM isn't one thing. It's multidimensional because it encompasses various aspects of our life, because we are the youth. YAM is for the youth. YAM is for young people, for like yourselves, me, Dr. Frame, not so much Berniah, But YAM is a movement for advocacy that impacts issues on our everyday lives as young people in society. And at the center of YAM is meaningful adolescent and youth engagement. I think you would agree, Dr. Frame and Berniah. And we can't talk that without talking about CSE and adolescent sexual and reproductive rights and health. So I'll hand you over to Berniah, but just keep in mind for the next time you hear YAM, you think Youth Advocacy Movement, not the YAM you went to dig on Corpus Christi or your YAM head best friend. You think YAM as in Youth Advocacy Movement.
So we've heard two acronyms, CSE, ASRHR. Those are very distant acronyms that I've never heard, you've never heard before. How many of you have ever heard these acronyms before? No. Dinar's heard it, right? So, let's go back, sorry. So CSE stands for Comprehensive Sexuality Education. Is anyone brave enough to tell us what they think that means? Comprehensive Sexuality Education. Any ideas? Go ahead.
You learn the parts about sexual education that most people don't want to tell you about.
Right. That's great. Comprehensive. When I think of comprehensive, I think of a day pass. When you go to a day pass, you get all inclusive. So if I go to True Blue, I could go on the kayak, I could go on the bunks, on the trampoline, I could drink until my heart bursts, I could eat. I get everything, not just sitting at a hotel. You get little parts of the hotel, all encompassing. That gives you an idea of the type of hotel it is. So comprehensive, it just really shows us that this sexuality education does not just encompass sex. It details everything, all the environment that may lead to someone becoming something. It has a lot to do with the person, the whole person, and not just sex, right? So our definition here says it's complete. Comprehensive means complete, including all or nearly all elements of something. And that's something that we're talking about is sexuality education. Now, ASRHR, it stands for Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Rights. Adolescent. Anyone knows what an adolescent is? An adolescent is that phase between childhood and adulthood, because you're not a child per se, but you're not an adult. So we call that an adolescent. Now, under comprehensive sexual education, we discuss very sensitive topics, very important topics. Think about your first experience with learning topics like menstruation, things about wet dreams, sex, teenage pregnancy, STIs. Think about that experience, and I want you to reflect on these questions while I give my experience. So, did you feel safe to ask questions? Was the information clear or was it confusing? What do you wish you knew back then? So, my experience was when I first got my first period. And yes, they taught us about it in primary school. That was in grade 4. They taught us about it. Persons came to us, taught us about using pads and tampons, etc. But it was not quite the same when I actually experienced it. I did not know what to do. I thought the best thing to do was go to the toilet and wipe with toilet paper until there was no more blood. Now, as we can all imagine, the blood did not stop. So I was wiping and wiping and wiping. I eventually blocked up the toilet. When the toilet couldn't flush, filled up the bin next to the toilet and went back and sit down like nothing happened. All because I was scared to tell my aunt that my period came. Why is that? It's because of the support that I did not have. It was not a comfortable space for me to share that information. So I hope that you've thought about your experience. Jonté, I hope you thought about your experience. What was your experience like?
With respect to the topic of pregnancy that you brought up there, your first experience, I think the boys in the room can relate. Just when I reach that stage and I look at the people around me and I find people getting taller and they're getting beard and they're growing muscles, and to this day I'm still looking for the height. It hasn't reached me yet. I was a bit insecure and I was concerned about the facial hair especially. But now I have my beard, you can see it coming in. Well, it's already here. But when I finally got the hair, in all my regions, I can recall crying and just freaking out in a room until my dad came and explained to me that it's totally normal to get hair on my body, besides the hair on my arms, as you could imagine. And I think when it first happened, I grabbed a pair of scissors and I tried and cut, and I made the wrong incisions in all the wrong places. So that was my first experience with something like that. And I mean, I have to thank my dad for being an advocate and someone who was willing and able to explain to me that it's totally normal to experience these changes. It's not every day that, you have someone, or that everyone has someone in their life who is willing to be that receptive of what you have to say and willing to give the information to you in a manner that you will receive it. So, Berniah, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on that. But that was my first experience. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So, as you can see with my experience, that gave me the motive to become an advocate for spaces like this, that teaches about comprehensive sexuality education. Because do you think that if I had that comprehensive, all-inclusive package of that education, would I have freaked out in that way? Would I have been scared to tell my aunt? I would not have, because comprehensive means that on all ends, in school, at home, with my peers, I have that support and that space to share and learn. I did not have that at the time, so I've made it my duty to ensure that others do have it. So we go into what is it? Comprehensive sexuality education. It equips youth with knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values to make safe, respectful choices in life. Not just about sex. You need the knowledge, the skills, and values. It's all about making choices, good decisions. So CSE, you would hear me using the acronym instead of saying the whole words, sorry. There are 8 key concepts. We would look at them throughout the duration of these 10 sessions. Relationships, values, rights, culture and sexuality, understanding gender, violence and staying safe, skills for health and well-being, the human body and development. Later on, the next group to present would be talking about menstruation and puberty, right? So we all have had experiences with these phenomena: sexuality and sexual behavior, sexual and reproductive health. As we have discussed, we can think of a couple benefits of comprehensive sexuality education. Jonté, what do you think are some benefits?
I think the main benefit is it equips you with the education and the knowledge to make the right choices. I often hear that CSE promotes promiscuity or hypersexual activity, but I think with CSE, you have the ability to say, hey, I don't want to do this, or I want to do this, or I feel comfortable with this. So I think the greatest benefits, I know you're asking for benefits, but I'm telling you the greatest one, I find, is the ability to make healthy and smart decisions.
All right, I agree. So we have other benefits. There are many benefits of having that comprehensive education. It would reduce STIs, HIV, unintended pregnancies, and harmful practices, because if you have that information and you know how to do things safely and make informed decisions, then you would be less likely to fall in the trap of STIs, etc. It also encourages respect, courage, and equal rights for all genders. It builds communication, empathy, etc. And it helps the youth to analyze social norms, peer pressure, and media messages. So when you have that education, you can recognize when something is off. Your friend For example, if your friend is saying, oh, I'm going to check a girl tomorrow and I don't want her to get pregnant, so I'm using 2 condoms. If you have that education, that comprehensive sexuality education, then that would tell you that's a red flag. 2 condoms would not protect, it would do the opposite. And that's just an example of one of the ways that you could analyze peer pressure, you could analyze things that's going on around you with that sexuality education. So our second acronym, ASRHR, is Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. Now what this is basically comprehensive sexual education, but for adolescents. It's more adolescent specific. It also encompasses the well-being of adolescents aged 10 to 19 and their ability to make informed choices about their bodies and future. So that will deal with their access to information and services. It would promote healthy relationships and prevent negative outcomes like pregnancies, unintended pregnancies, STIs, etc. So ASRHR just is CSE, but for adolescents, right? In the Caribbean context, there's a common misconception that CSE is against religious values, when the fact is we do teach, we encourage values like respect, honesty, and responsibility, and these align with many faith traditions. So, go ahead, sorry, I realized I just take over Jonté.
Well, I have a question to those that would say that CSE is against religious values. I would like to know, especially Christian believers, I would like to know, who did Jesus cater to? I'm pretty sure it was the prostitutes and thieves and tax collectors and everyone who was indulging in every wrong or or activities that the church would consider against their values. So I said this to say that sex isn't something new. I think it's something that Jesus himself dabbled in. Not himself dabbling as you, not in that sense, but he catered to living beings, not dead people. And humans are sexual beings. So I pose that question, who did he cater to if not them?
Right. Thank you, Jonté. So this concludes the content part of our session. And now we open the floor to any questions that you may have. If you're not comfortable to speak, there was a QR code that was scanned outside. If you didn't scan it, it's also up. So feel free to ask any question that you have. If you need to say it out loud, just raise your hand.
Well, there was some questions that was left on our forum.
One of the biggest challenges that teenagers or adolescents face when accessing sexual and reproductive services include, or probably is, the issue of consent, right? Parental consent to access the service. Now, the challenge stems from the age, the legal age for adolescents to have sex in Grenada, or for anyone, is 16 years, according to the law. The age at which persons can access health services, including sexual and reproductive health services, that's a bit of a gray area. Some people will tell you it's 18 years of age. Some people will say, well, it's 16 because, the age at which they can have sex is 16. So if it's 16, if they can have sex at 16, then why can't they access those services at age 16, right? The law is not as clear on that. So that's created a bit of problem, because when you go to the health center or to a doctor and you go by yourself, the doctor will then say, where is your parents? Did your mother or your father give you permission? Right? And so they may or may not send you away without giving you the service because you didn't have that permission from your parents. However, we at the Planned Parenthood Association, as well as at the government level, there has been quite a lot of work in recent years to change that. We've not gotten there yet, but we're hoping that sooner rather than later that change can be made. Another important barrier is the issue of confidentiality. We live in a small country. Everybody knows one another. So even if someone were to go to access the service, there's usually that fear that by the time they leave the health center and they're going back home, mommy or daddy knows, or somebody in their family knows, that they were at the health facility asking for one kind of service or another without their permission. Right? So those are really two of the biggest barriers for services in Grenada for adolescents.
Thank you.
You made a point where you stated that adolescents have a bit of issues gaining services due to lack of parental consent. So how can we make conversations about sex and reproductive health more open between parents and teenagers?
Question, and I'm very, very happy that you asked this question. Now let's bring this back to the topic of comprehensive sexuality education that Jonté and Berniah so very well covered for us this morning. Now, when we think about comprehensive sexuality education, we think about it oftentimes as something just for the students, right? But think about your parents. Did your parents have comprehensive sexuality education or any sexuality education? A lot of our parents didn't, or there were big gaps in what they were taught. So they're very uncomfortable talking about it. I've done research with adolescents on this topic, and adolescents have shared that it's just so uncomfortable, right? It was interesting that they thought that they actually prefer to get that information from their parents, to talk to their parents about these topics. But they said, even if mommy started the conversation, it was like this whole big deal kind of thing. It's just a conversation to talk about it, right? And that is just so uncomfortable. It's like, why? And if they were to raise it, it was also very uncomfortable. So I think while we're talking about comprehensive sexuality education, it has to be something that we're more fluent in our daily speech, right? It doesn't have to be a big sit-down conversation. You're watching a movie. When I was growing up, and I'm sitting with my family watching a movie, two people started kissing on the screen, somebody's rushing to cover my eyes, or they're pausing it and they're saying, okay, go outside, right? But it's an excellent opportunity to say to your daughter or to your son, this is what they're doing, and this is something that really should be done among two people who love each other, right? You have that conversation. So it's not, as we hear the birds and the bees, it doesn't have to be this big sit-down conversation. We know that the question that always comes up from a very early age, Mommy, where do babies come from? Right? And we hear all these stories that people make up, right? I'm sure if I ask you what you've heard, what your parents have told you, you have lots of stories, right? But probably none of it is the actual thing. So it has to be something that's not a big deal conversation. Just like anything else, you just ask a question, you get an answer, you move along. Another day, maybe you pick it up with another part of it, right? And you keep it going. So a long answer, but I hope it made the point.
Thank you so much. What would you recommend to an adolescent who is being peer-pressured to engage in sexual activities?
Well, I picked this up from one of my colleagues, but if I wouldn't make that decision on my own, would I still make it if they were not there? So if they were not pressuring me to do this, would I do it? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. So it all comes back to confidence and your support system. So you seek advice from trustworthy sources. You befriend persons who support what you would like to, the values that you have. You befriend persons and be around persons who share those same sentiments. So I believe that would help in a situation where you feel like you're pressured to do something that you don't want to do.
I'd like to add to what Berniah so graciously said, well executed. I think it's important for that individual to take a step back from the situation. Especially if it's that you're being pressured, things can feel like everything just moving so fast. It's important you take a minute to breathe and try and observe the situation, your own situation, from a different standpoint. Oftentimes when the words are in your face like this, you can't really assess what's going on, but if you're at a distance, you can clearly see the situation from different angles and observe the whole thing, at its entirety. So I think if you take a step back and just assess the situation and see if it's something that you really want to do, if it's something that you're being forced or pressured into doing, that will be a great help as well.
Thank you. Some lovely advice. Hope you guys took it in. Does the Youth Advocacy Movement advocate for homosexual individuals?
Youth is for everyone. YAM is for everyone. When we say youth, we don't mean youth but not you, and youth but not you, and youth but not you, and youth but not you. When we say youth advocacy movement, we mean just that, the youth advocacy movement. And that's youth regardless of your gender, race, sexuality, or what you eat for breakfast, or what shoes you wear, what clothes you wear. It's for everybody. It's the youth advocacy movement. Did you guys?
That was a great answer, Jonté.
As we would say, clock it.
Are there any live questions? Anyone brave enough to give their own?
There's a mic.
Hey, moderator.
And I do have one final question. What is the best way to prevent pregnancy and STIs?
First, abstinence. If you don't want to get pregnant, don't have sex. But if you are in a situation where it happens, you use contraceptive methods. Condoms are the most reliable method when it comes to protecting both from STIs and pregnancies. No contraceptive method is 100% effective, but condoms are your best bet with that. Additionally, you could couple it with another contraceptive method like the IUD, the implant, etc. But don't double condoms.
Right.
Yeah. Can't stress it enough because I've heard it a lot. Yeah. Jonté, you have anything to add?
I think the best thing to do is to be well informed and see what works for you. So I would invite you to come at our office at the GPPA and come for a consultation and see what works best for you.
David?
Yeah.
And I can add as well, so of course, parents are welcome to come with their adolescents. Adolescents can come alone. We offer information, we offer services, right? As Jonté and Berniah said, having the information about sexuality is not a mandate to have sex, but information is the very first step. You don't know what you don't know unless you know it, right? So you must become aware. Your parents must be aware. And so we're saying, open up the space. For too long, this has been a big open secret that our community, our society is uncomfortable to talk about. And at the end of this is our young people, our adolescents, who are ending up with sexually transmitted infections, who are ending up with pregnancies that they didn't plan for, that they didn't yet want, that are watching their futures, right? Not completely go up in smoke, but being set back. It's being delayed, right? So these are big responsibilities that you're not prepared for. Your bodies are not ready as adolescents to bring forth a child, right? Nobody's saying that sex outside of marriage is what we should do. But the reality is that there are a good number of young people, of adolescents in school, out of school, who are sexually active. Can we all agree that even if you are not sexually active, that you know somebody, one of your friends, one of your cousins, one of your siblings are sexually active, or they're thinking about it. And if they don't have the correct information, they make bad decisions. And so all we're saying is, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. And that there are places where you can access the correct information. We'll have a session on the digital space, right? We know so much information is available out there, but so much of it is misinformation, as they've said. And so your parents and yourselves, as a whole society, we have to know what is the correct information, how to protect you, right? If we talk about nation building and the role that young people have to play in nation building, you cannot play that role if you don't have your health, right? And good health also means not being sick in terms of your sexual and reproductive health. You can have HIV, you can have STIs, right? There are things that can happen to you that can affect you for the rest of your life because of decisions you've made about how you handle your sexuality. And those are conversations that we need to have. Jonté talked about the question about, is CSE against religious values? It is not. It is very consistent with religious values, right? Not just in terms of talking about respect, but CSE really is about a promotion of family value, right? And so Berniah said it's comprehensive. So let's not just think about CSE as sex. I was talking to some of the young ladies before the session started, and I was asking, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? And I heard vet, a doctor, an accountant, right? And for all of these things, they agreed. You have to go to school for years and years and years. Two people said they have to go to school for 7 years to learn to be a doctor and learn to be a vet. Where are we going to learn how to have a family and how to have good families, right? Not everybody goes to church. But even when we go to church, are we learning how to have wholesome families? Are we learning how to have these difficult conversations about relationships with our partners, with our boyfriends or girlfriends, husbands, wives? Who is teaching us about healthy relationships and these difficult conversations? Condom use is a negotiation. One person says, yes, I want to use it. The other person says, no, I don't really want to use it. No. I mean, it takes away the feeling, it doesn't feel so good, all kinds of reasons, right? It's against my religion, right? My family values. What are our parents expecting us to do in terms of our sexual and reproductive health? So we have to have these conversations to know what the expectations are. And I think without something like comprehensive sexuality education, we're really doing not just our young people, but our entire country a disservice. And I'm saying this because I think the YAM is setting an excellent example by being advocates and speaking up for this. But I think more young people have to speak up. We know that within our schools, and I'm doing a monologue, I apologize. We know that within our schools, not all schools teach these things equally, right? Some principals are okay, some teachers are okay, but in some cases they're not. And so all students are not getting the same information. But this is important information. And so while the YAM can talk and advocate, and I can talk and advocate, you as young people, we need a whole country of youth advocates for these issues because ultimately they affect you, right? So you need to go to your teacher and to your principal and say, well, Miss, Sir, can we have these conversations? Can we create a safe space where we can talk about these issues? Because at the end of the day, it affects us. You know, when the boy that you like or don't like comes up to you and says, you know, I like you, girl. You're looking real nice in that skirt there, right? How do you respond to that? Right? I know how I responded, and it wasn't very good. I turned around and I slapped him, right? But that's not the right way to respond. Because when you're 11 and 12, you don't have the language and the vocabulary of how to respond to these things, right? And so we need to develop that language and vocabulary to have those conversations. And that's what we want to do. We want, when you go back to your schools, when you go home, ask your parents, ask your teachers to call us. Call the YAM, call the GPPA. Let's have these conversations. Call the schools. Ask the schools to open the doors to have these conversations. Whether they call it CSE, or they call it HFLE, or they call it life skills education, we don't care. It's a name. We don't care about what it's called. We care about what they're actually teaching you, that you have the correct information, and that you have an opportunity to learn about this, a safe space. 7 years where you get to learn about all of these important issues so you can have a healthy family life, healthy relationships at the end of the day, and that you can fulfill your potential as individuals and collectively as young people. And so that's my wish for you and for our YAM and for our whole country in terms of having these conversations.
I just leave you on this note. Adolescents make up 15% of Grenada's population. And when we empower them, we secure a healthier Grenada tomorrow. So we have to put in the work today to empower our adolescents for tomorrow. GrenChap, we have Special Victims Unit, Grenada National Council of the Disabled, Grenada Violence Unit, and our contact information. So all of these, legal aid and counseling, all of these would deal with their niche with sexual and reproductive health, rape, other sensitive topics that you may be battling and you need help with. So feel free to reach out to any one of these. We thank you for listening in today and engaging with us.
From all of us at the GPPA Youth Advocacy Movement, thank you. To our incredible sponsors and partners, your unwavering support has been the heartbeat of the Sofa Talk series. Because of you, we've built a space where voices are heard, stories are shared, and young minds are empowered. Your belief in our vision has turned conversations into connections and ideas into impact. Thank you for standing with us, for amplifying our message, and for helping us make every discussion matter. Together, we have made something special. Thank you.